Welcome. We close out season 1 of the FAQ Business Podcast in part because we are actually practicing what we preach and are setting boundaries for ourselves. So we're about to embark on a 1-month hiatus from the podcast before starting season 2 with the great speakers we've got lined up. And we've had these in the wings for a while, but we wanted to make sure we had a decent audience before bringing them on board. Also, I've been speaking to a number of people recently about setting boundaries. And given that we've got a gap ahead, well, at least we do in Australia, given it's our Christmas, New Year, summer holidays all in one, there tends to be a bit of a slowdown over that Christmas, New Year period. And it's a great time to use that gap in your business to slow things down, to reassess things and to reset things ready for next year. So one of the things that I want to do, and I encourage you to do as well, is to really focus on setting your boundaries and making sure they're firm and ready for 2022. Welcome to the FAQ Business Podcast for business owners, covering 4 pillars: actionable education, inspiring leaders, businesses like you, and thought leadership, where we challenge your thinking. Hosted by myself, Jane Tweedy, I'm founder and lead trainer of FAQ Business Training, where we want to avoid you getting ripped off or ripping yourself off. We'll feature an amazing diversity of guests with lots to educate and inspire you. Let's jump into today's episode of the FAQ Business Podcast. I'm Jane Tweedy, founder of FAQ Business Training and host of the FAQ Business Podcast. Like many this year, we had all good intentions of starting the podcast, for instance, with some in the can, making it a lot easier for us to maintain a weekly schedule of podcasts, because I can tell you there's a lot that goes into making a podcast, particularly when it's actually a video podcast and blog. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, and our intention was to have some in the can, which we just didn't manage to do. So each week it's always that kind of push to get things happening. So hence why we're going to take a bit of a break and actually allow us to get that few in the can ahead of the game to restart for 2022. And we've already got some amazing guests lined up, so very excited about that one. So many people that are finishing the year out in 2021 have had huge highs and huge lows. Some people had their best year ever. Some people have barely been open for the past 2 years thanks to COVID lockdowns. For me personally, I found 2020 pretty tough. It was burnout material. I was working insane hours, predominantly for everybody else, and really doing almost nothing for me and my businesses. I put one of the businesses on hold completely. One of the businesses I was just doing council work, so I was running some programs for a few councils. And the other business was ticking over, but really it was just ticking over. So I had great intentions for 2021 to get things back going, to get things back on track and focus on my businesses for a change. But of course, we get it back into lockdown and things again, and things just haven't quite gone as smoothly as I might have liked. However, I have managed to get a number of things off the ground this year, and when I do a bit of a look back to what I've achieved, I'm like, actually, it's not been so bad. So what did I get done in 2021? I managed to complete my upgrade for my Cert 4 of training and assessment. And honestly, that was painful. Holy moly. When it's a course about assessments and the assessments are really bad, it makes you wonder. But seriously, got there, did that, happy, got the certificate. I have launched a new product after getting certified as a Herman certified practitioner, which means that I can offer the Herman Brain Dominance Instrument Profile, or the HBDI for short, much easier to say, to people who want to tap into their whole brain thinking. And not do it through like the limitless method of popping a pill and having terrible after effects. The effects of this one, I promise you, are all good. I started my new assistant in the middle of the year. She was meant to start, and then of course lockdown, and we delayed, and in the end we just gave up waiting for lockdown to finish, and we started her remotely. So not ideal training someone on new systems and new business and new everything remotely. But then again, it also cements that online learning can work, even with tricky situations and tricky material that you're trying to work with. So I've been very grateful to have Cheryl on board for this last few months. I got my podcast started. So FAQ Business Podcast has been up and running, not quite as planned, but hey, we've got 12 episodes in the can. Well, after I've recorded and published this one. And finally, a few weeks ago, I actually launched my online school and membership. Again, probably not quite ready, probably done a bit ahead of time, given I was sick and things, but it had been in the wings for so long, and I'm just so happy that it's up there. And I was talking to someone today that's in it, and she's like, she doesn't see it as not being what my vision for it was. She just sees it as being something that's really helpful to her. So that's the thing, right? Sometimes our vision for things, our way of wanting something, is not actually something that's necessarily echoed by the audience that we're actually giving it to. So sometimes we need to stop beating ourselves up as much as what we do. I also undertook some corporate training during the year. I ran some training sessions for some corporate groups. And I have done plenty of training courses, many repeat ones on the usual suspects like low-cost marketing and business planning, but also getting out some new topics as I could, and particularly using my own platform of my Tea Time Tips series. Got lots of new training out under that, and also got some of the things out that you don't talk about as much. Things like discounting, things like risk and insurance, which is a boring kind of topic, but absolutely essential if you want to run your business effectively. So when I look at all the stuff that I've achieved this year, it looks pretty awesome, really. However, there's been some sacrifices, and this is where I really need to set my boundaries and make changes for 2022. And the sacrifice primarily came in my sleep, my self-care, and time giving to anything but working on and in my business. I did, however, in 2021, start to restrict my time I was giving to other people. So what I had been doing, particularly in 2020, was I literally opened my calendar up anytime, day, night, weekend, to people. And that really caused me to suffer, because I would have clients literally take up all those times, and then of course really struggle to actually get anything done for myself. So this year I was a little bit more strict on the times that I made available. So I really made people kind of work with me and my times, rather than constantly caving to other people and their times. So with things coming up to a little bit of a slowdown at the Christmas period, then I think it's a great time to stop, reflect, and reset and firm up those boundaries. Someone I was talking to today made the comment that I'm always there, I'm always helping people, and she recognized that I do it off my own back. And yes, I get awareness from it, but there's no payment from those people, and a lot of their effort is substantial. What is changing in 2022? What boundaries am I setting? In 2022, I want to maintain my focus on FAQ business training and building the online school and the membership, because that really is my future. I also want to relaunch the two businesses that were on hold or partially on hold and get them back up and running effectively as they should be. I'm hoping to pass at least one of those over to somebody else to kind of manage on the day-to-day, but I have to do the sort of start part and the raw material part. The other business action networking, I want to get going back again for 2022, back with some in-person events in Penrith and potentially some other localities too, but also to do online networking. And that ties in with my membership platform. So I want to have that ability to have the online networking and mastermind type setup that could run on there. So looking forward to doing that in 2022. I will also continue the FAQ Business Podcast, and partly that's because I'm really finding it is opening me up to a brand new audience. And the US market, for some reason, seems to like the podcast. So the listeners are predominantly from Australia, but also from the US, and then a smattering of other countries too. And the US market is definitely one I want to tap into, as I really think it's going to be beneficial for the online school and the membership going forward to help it build the traction that I want it and need it to have over time. May mean that I need to cut back on some of the one-on-one work I do, which is obviously part of me setting my boundaries. And really that comes down to me choosing my clients. So I'm more than happy to continue one-on-one work with people that I really feel get the most out of it. They get the most out of me and my expertise and experience. So I really want to work with people that are growing small business owners or medium business owners, people that have genuine growth potential, not just people that are running a little hobby business on the side and don't really need to make it grow, because I can't build with them and they can't build with me. And that's really what I want to do, is have businesses that we can grow up alongside each other. So in short, I will do less of the real sort of startup businesses and leave them for the other sort of government entities to look after. But I will focus on the businesses that I think with my time and energy, I can genuinely add value to them. In 2022, I'm also going to be a bit more judicious about the events that I speak at, the organizations I get involved with, and this has already started to happen. I pulled out of a network that I have been involved in for 6 years due to it changing direction. And it's in a direction I just don't agree with. And to be honest, I was also a bit angry and a bit frustrated that me and a couple of others were not given the opportunity to take over that group when we'd been around longer than the person that has taken it over. Sometimes you do need to let go of relationships or groups or situations that no longer work for you. And that one no longer works for me. I don't get on that well with the people who run it. And the people that are in there are a demographic that just doesn't suit where I want to take my business in the future. So, time to leave. It also then potentially opens up an opportunity to open up an alternative group in that locality for the people like me that are going, the group that's there just doesn't work anymore. So I want to tap into that and to the audience that's left behind that I want to work with. So looking forward to working with some others on that in 2022. So when you're looking at networks, I strongly recommend looking at the groups that you're involved in and making sure they're at the right level for you, making sure that they're the right fit for you and they achieve your goals. So with all networking, my recommendation is that you set yourself goals. What do you want to get out of that networking? Do you want to get education? Do you want to get friendship? Do you want to get a placed event? Do you want to get peers? Do you want to get referral partners? Do you want to get clients? Be really clear on why you're going to the networking group. But don't expect, for instance, if you want clients that you're going to get them on day one. You have to put in the hard yards and the groundwork. However, sometimes you just want to go to a group to be social, particularly if you're working from home or a very small business. Sometimes it's nice just to see real human beings out in the real world. And particularly after COVID lockdown, I think that's definitely been the case. So think about why you're being involved in groups. So there's a couple of groups I'll probably stay involved with, even though they're not really my demographic, not really suitable for me to stay in for gaining clients or anything like that. But I do enjoy the local business camaraderie, and I do enjoy just the social gathering from that perspective. So think about why you're in these groups and set goals for them and make sure they're achieving them. And if they're no longer delivering, bye-bye. It's time to leave and move on. The other one to consider is things like, for me, when you do a lot of public speaking, is to consider what events and what organizations you align with. I had an event I was looking at earlier this year, and it was sponsored by some, great sponsors and things that sound pretty good. And I was all keen and enthusiastic speaking to the event manager. It was all good. And then I got the details of the speaker application. And I was like, are you kidding me? Because I was kind of horrified to find at this event, they had major sponsors. So they're paying for the big bulk costs of the event. They had major sponsors. They had minor sponsors and exhibitors. The speakers were not being paid to speak, not being given a free ticket to the conference, which is my normal expectation, I suppose. But instead, they were asked to pay a subsidized ticket to the conference. But in addition to that, you've also got the people paying as well. So you've got attendees paying, sponsors paying, exhibitors paying, speakers paying, everyone is paying. And I'm like, who's getting the money? It just didn't seem to stack up to me. And that sort of thing just doesn't align with my values. So I'm like, yeah, no, maybe not. If I'm putting in the thing that's the draw card to get people in, then I want to, get my fair share, or at least not feel like I'm being ripped off, which I kind of felt like it was being in that situation. So looking at events in the future, I will continue to set boundaries around where I'll speak. So where I will choose to speak for free, where I'll speak for full rate, where I will speak at a subsidized rate. So for things like a not-for-profit where I genuinely believe in the cause and I think that it's got, great reasons for me presenting there, sure, I can still speak at those groups, but I don't need to speak at every single one. I can't be behind everything. I am a community volunteer director for the Bendigo Community Bank in the Hawkesbury, so Hawkesbury Financial Services Limited. And, I do some time for that. I run some Facebook groups for no cost, some job search groups to help people out. I do my volunteer work, but I'm not going to just do everything because I simply don't have enough hours in the day. I go to bed at 2:30 in the morning. There's only so many hours sleep I can forego before I go completely nuts. Another obvious one, particularly for people like me, coaches, advisors, trainers, are the number of just a quick questions you get behind the scenes. And I've been getting stronger with this and not just helping every single person that comes along. The problem with these, a lot of them aren't even my clients. They're just randoms out of the blue. They drop a request in and they say, hey, just a quick question, blah, blah, blah. The thing is, 9 times out of 10, it's not just a quick question, or it leads on to something much more substantial. So you start off with one quick question, which leads to 10 other questions, none of which are quick. So I've tried to get tougher in dealing with those. So if it genuinely is like a 30-second reply, sweet, 30 seconds done, see you later, bye, have a nice day. But if it is more than that, I'm getting a bit tougher about saying, hey, happy to help you, but you'll need to book a session for that one. And it's interesting to see when people, go, oh, okay then, and I'm like, you're just using me. And that does start wearing thin after a while, particularly when I am going to bed at 2:30 in the morning. If I spend an extra half hour helping that person, what am I going to go to bed at 3 o'clock then? Well, I can't because I actually have a curfew of 2:30. I'm not allowed to go to bed after 2:30. So I need to stop at that point and go, enough's enough, and I need to pull that back. And obviously 2:30 is not sustainable. I'm going to have a heart attack or something if I keep doing that. So I need to pull that back. And so I really need to be very careful about those just a quick questions. Sometimes with those, though, I can help them on a more substantial way because I can provide a blog, a podcast, or a tea time tip that helps them with that issue. But it doesn't mean I have to help them one-on-one behind the scenes. It means I'm actually doing something that's part of my marketing activities, and that's fine. I have no problem with doing that because I need to do those things anyway. So we're going to do that. Speaking of tea time tips, I will probably make some changes to that in 2022. So I will probably continue doing 2 a month, but one of them will only be available for my membership or in my online school. So for $5, you can access it. But if you don't want to pay, then you don't get. So the other one will be open freely. But again, it's just me going, okay, how much of my time am I spending doing these things? And that costs me money. It costs me time. So after I've done the live, I then download it, I edit it, and then I give it to my assistant and she transcribes it using software, but you've still got to do quite a lot of work. She transcribes it and then it goes onto the blog. And it goes onto Teachable. Quite a bit of work that goes behind the scenes on a tea time tip. And if people aren't really appreciating it or getting value from it, then, you don't appreciate it, you don't keep it. Those are the sort of things that, you have to make those calls on. But, it sounds tough, right? But do you think it sounds good that I'm going to bed at 2:30 in the morning? It's not like I'm sleeping in all day. I still have to get up at a reasonable hour. So, my big night's sleep is 5 hours. That's not enough, and it's not enough to sustain me over time. So, okay, maybe I'm getting cranky. Maybe I've had enough, but the reality is I know that it's not sustainable, and I know that I'm going to burn out if I continue doing that, and I just can't keep doing that. The other thing these people can do if they want access to me is they can join my membership. The memberships are really low cost and it gives them a lot more access to me. So again, for a small fee, they can have access. So I need to respect myself. And if I'm not respecting myself and saying I'm worth that small investment, then what hope have I got for helping anybody else to do the same thing? I've had a similar discussion about setting boundaries recently with a couple of people, including a lady last week who runs a networking group. And she was basically saying she's at that same point of just that real frustration that people are just using her. They are not respecting or valuing her time. And they just come to her and say, oh, I've got this drama, I've got this problem. And she becomes their sounding board. She becomes their person to vent to. She becomes all these things to everybody. But again, very busy lady with a lot going on, and she just doesn't have the time or the capacity to be able to handle all of that. And it's getting to that point where she was just like the other day, and she's going, God, if one more thing happens, she's going to lose it, because there's only so much we can take. I know for me, I ended up a couple of weeks ago, I ended up with a stress rash on my arms. And I know at that point it's happened once before in my life that, okay, enough is enough. And my problem is I don't necessarily show stress. I'll certainly have blow-ups at people and that, don't get me wrong. But just stress from, building up every day, it actually doesn't show. And so I don't even notice that I'm actually under a huge amount of stress until something like that happens when I see this rash. And I'm going, maybe my body's trying to tell me something here. Maybe I just need to, slow it back down a little bit. So, something to keep an eye on. But we do need to watch these signals, because otherwise we could either lose our minds, we could lose our health, we could have a stroke or a heart attack or something. Seriously, if people think it's not that serious, it really is. It's crazy, this sort of stuff that we put ourselves through as small business owners. It's insane. So I think my biggest change for 2022 is not even so much on the customer side, but really it is on the priority setting myself. So it's setting boundaries for me to go, you know what? I actually need to give me some time. I need to give me some self-care time. I need to have a regular massage. I need to go to the physio if I need to go to the physio. I need to do some exercise. Oh my gosh, clearly. I need to eat better. I need to do all these things. And they're not just I shoulds or whatever. These are I need to. I want to. But I just haven't given it priority, because I've been too busy worrying about everyone else and everything else happening in my life that I just haven't focused attention on it. The other thing that I want to focus on is just the relationships around me with people that I care about, because I've seen a few posts lately. Cherie Clonan from the Digital Picnic put up a post about lonely entrepreneurs, and Leanne Shelton has actually just put out a podcast about friendship groups and things. And both of them really resonated, because this is something I definitely see as well. And it was something I noticed last year, particularly at New Year's time, was that a lot of the entrepreneurs and things had New Year's home alone, because they don't actually have close friendships and things. They're pretty much driven everyone away, because they're so busy focused on their business and growing their business, and their business is their baby. They're working when everyone else is playing, which then means that those people, when they're playing, stop asking you to play with them. I know we're big kids, but you know what I mean. And I think that's definitely an issue. And obviously it affects relationships. I've seen a number of people split with their partners over the last few years. And a lot of those have been businesses that have been small to medium businesses, where the husband and wife were quite involved in the business, but mainly it was the wife's business. And they've really struggled. And they've ended up splitting up, which is hard, because then you've got to juggle everything else in life by yourself. And, there's a big thing here. So we don't want to do that. So I really need to make the effort in 2022 to get myself out from behind my desk or off my couch and actually do some stuff for me. I need to look into self-care. I need to make sure I don't burn myself out by helping everyone else and not helping myself. And I really need to set those boundaries. So, in summary, there's some actionable education I want you to take out of today, because today's really been a bit of thought leadership. Number 1, decide who you want to help and how much help you want to give them, and what your capacity is to help. Make sure you set boundaries around that support and that help to make sure that you don't end up frustrated and angry or burned out because you've given everyone else too much. Number 2, decide what networks and things you want to remain involved with. Just because you've been with one for an extended period of time doesn't automatically mean it's worth continuing with. And if it no longer delivers what you used to get out of it, or the people have changed or the circumstances have changed, make that call. Does it do anything for you anymore? Does it achieve any goal for you? Have you set yourself goals for what you want to get out of that networking? And make sure that if it's not the right fit, quietly extricate yourself from the group. Number 3, exposure doesn't pay bills. So do consider the work that you're doing for an exposure-only basis and brand awareness, things like speaking to groups, and make sure it genuinely is worth it for you in the long run. It's fine to do stuff for not-for-profits and even just community groups and even just other small businesses. But do make those calls consciously. Do decide who you are going to back and who you're going to align with. And don't just do it for everybody. There's got to be some boundaries here. I do need to earn a living. I can't just do everything for free. And that's kind of the expectation people have, is that I'm just going to work for free for everyone. It's like, I'm sorry, but I actually need to earn a living. So, simple. I need to eat. I need to pay for my mortgage. All that fun stuff that, us big kids have to deal with. Number 4. Set boundaries with who you work with. Make sure you align with their values. And if you don't, really think about, getting these people out of your life. Make sure that you are sharing the workload. Make sure that, you don't have one side doing everything, one side incurring all the costs, one side, putting in all the work, because it won't work. It will cause you friction and it will cause you issues. So just think about who you are aligning with. And number 5, make sure you don't forget about you. And this is the one I really have to listen to. Make sure that your self-care is built into your day. For instance, a lady I was talking to today had got on that train of working from 10 in the morning to 10 at night because everyone wants her. And it's so exciting to have everyone wanting you when you're a new business. But the problem was she wasn't even allowing enough time to go to the toilet or even eat a banana. And even her poor dog was suffering. In the last 3 weeks, he'd barely been for any walks. That's not good. So the first thing she needs to do is to schedule into her calendar dog walking, and make sure she gives both her dog and herself that time. She said she enjoyed it, and it was a good way to, unwind a bit. So make sure you are scheduling that stuff in your calendar. For me, if this weather would improve, oh my gosh, we've had the crappiest summer so far. I love to swim. So for me, it's that time in the pool. In fact, when I get off here, that's what I'm going to do. Go jump in the pool and have a nice little swim and a little bit of rest and relaxation. So thank you for listening in on season 1 of the FAQ Business Podcast. If you haven't caught up with our podcast before, if the first time you've heard of us, there are a dozen episodes on a range of things. For instance, we had Robin Hawke talking to us a couple of episodes about productive workspaces and even how your workspace affects your branding. I talked about things like 10 things not to do in business, whole brain thinking, and I had the lovely Sheila Kapakungan come in and talk to us about avoiding small business poverty. So if you've just come across us now, please check out our past episodes, as there may be something to interest you and that can entertain you while you wait for season 2 to come out in 2022. Otherwise, I would like to wish everyone season's greetings and see you in 2022 with firmer boundaries on a path to bigger success in 2022. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the FAQ Business Podcast. Available on all good podcast services. You can subscribe today via faqbusinesspodcast.com.au or directly on Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio or Spotify. Subscribe, follow, share, and where able, review our podcast or leave us a comment on either YouTube or our blog page. Thanks for helping us to help you, the small to medium businesses who are growing and want to make a difference. Look forward to connecting with you again on the next episode of the FAQ Business Podcast.